You ever look at someone you love and realize you never really knew them at all? My name is Lisa, and I need to tell you about my brother Derek, the golden boy. The one who could do no wrong. The one who destroyed everything our mother built, while she smiled and handed him the keys. Let me take you back to where it all started to unravel. My mother, Janet, owned the most beautiful bakery you've ever seen. Sweet Dreams Bakery, right on Main Street. She'd built it from nothing 30 years ago, after my father passed away. Every morning at 4 a.m., she'd be there, hands deep in flour, creating magic. Cinnamon rolls that made grown men cry. Wedding cakes that looked like art. That bakery wasn't just her business, it was her heart, her legacy, her proof that she'd survived and thrived. I grew up in that bakery. Learned to count using measuring cups. Did my homework at the corner table while Mom worked. And when I got older, I stayed. Helped with inventory, learned the books, covered shifts when she needed me. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. Derek? He visited on holidays. Showed up in his expensive suits, kissed Mom on the cheek, told her funny stories, and left. He had his own life, his own business ventures, or so he said. But somehow, in Mom's eyes, he hung the moon. Every time he called, her whole face would light up. My perfect son. My brilliant boy. I tried not to be bitter about it. Really, I did. Before we go any further into this, I just want to say, if you feel a connection to these stories, a small click on that like button and subscribe would mean more to me than you know. It lets me know I'm not just speaking into the void, that you're really here with me. Alright, let's continue. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Mom called me into her tiny office behind the kitchen. The smell of fresh bread surrounded us, and she had that excited look in her eyes that I'd learned to dread. Lisa, honey, I've been thinking about the future, she said, reaching across the desk to pat my hand. I'm not getting any younger, and I want to make sure Sweet Dreams is taken care of when I'm gone. My heart jumped. Finally. After all these years of working beside her, of keeping this place running, I'd decided to leave the bakery to Derek. The words hit me like cold water. I must have heard wrong. Mom, what? Derek, she repeated, smiling like she'd just announced Christmas was coming early. He's got such a good head for business, and I know he'll take Sweet Dreams to the next level. Expand it. Maybe franchise it. He's always had such big dreams. I sat there, stunned. Mom, I've been here every single day for the past 12 years. I know this business inside and out. Derek hasn't set foot in this kitchen for more than an hour at a time since he was 17. Her smile faltered just a little. Lisa, don't be like that. You know Derek loves this place. He's just been busy building his own success. And honestly, sweetheart, you're wonderful with the day-to-day operations, but Derek has vision. He has ambition. What she meant was, you're good enough to do the work, but not good enough to own it. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Does Derek even know about this? Not yet, but he'll be thrilled. I'm telling him this weekend when he visits. I nodded slowly, not trusting myself to speak. What could I say? She'd made up her mind. In her eyes, Derek was the golden child who could do no wrong, and I was just, reliable Lisa. Good old Lisa. Lisa who would always be there, no matter how little she was valued. I hope you understand, honey, Mom continued, squeezing my hand. This doesn't mean I don't appreciate everything you do. You'll always have a job here, of course. Derek will need you to help him run things. Work for my little brother. In the business I'd helped build. Perfect. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the conversation in my mind, trying to find some way to make it hurt less. And that's when I remembered something odd. Last week, I'd been doing inventory and noticed some discrepancies in our supply orders. Nothing huge, but the numbers didn't quite add up. Then there were those bank statements I'd accidentally seen on Mom's desk, withdrawals I didn't recognize. I'd meant to ask her about them, but she'd been so busy, and honestly, I'd forgotten. But now, lying in the dark, those little inconsistencies started to nag at me. The next morning, I arrived at the bakery earlier than usual. Mom was already there, of course, pulling trays of croissants from the oven. Everything seemed normal. Perfect, even. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I spent my lunch break going through the financial records Mom kept in the office. She wasn't great with computers, so everything was still mostly paper. And that's when I started to see it. Withdrawals. Lots of them. 5,000 here, 8,000 there, 12,000 from last month. All marked as business expenses but with no corresponding invoices or receipts. And the signatures. My blood ran cold. The signatures were my mother's. But I knew my mother's handwriting. I'd seen it on birthday cards, on notes, on recipe cards my whole life. These signatures looked close. Very close. But they weren't quite right. The capital J in Janet swooped a little too far. The tail on the T was too short. Someone had been forging my mother's signature. And I had a terrible, sinking feeling I knew exactly who. 3 days later, Derek showed up. Unannounced, which wasn't unusual for him. He breezes into the bakery around 2 p.m., all smiles and charm, hugging Mom like he'd been gone for years instead of weeks. "My two favorite ladies," he said, grinning that perfect grin that had gotten him out of trouble his entire life. Mom practically glowed. "Derek, what a wonderful surprise. I was in the area and thought I'd stop by." He glanced at me, and for just a second, something flickered in his eyes. Something that made my skin crawl. But then the smile was back, bright and warm. "Lisa, you're looking well. Still holding down the fort, I see." "Someone has to," I said quietly. Mom shot me a look. "Don't start." Derek wandered around the bakery, complimenting everything, charming the customers, playing the perfect son. And then, casually, like it was nothing at all, he pulled Mom aside. I couldn't hear their whole conversation, but I caught fragments. "Just a small loan, Mom, temporary cash flow issue, back on my feet in no time." And Mom, without hesitation, pulled out her checkbook. I watched her write that check. Watched her hand it to him. Watched him kiss her on the forehead and promise he'd pay her back soon. $10,000. Just like that. As he left, Derek caught my eye one more time. And this time, there was no mistaking the look he gave me. It was a warning. He knew that I was starting to see. And he was daring me to do something about it. That's when I realized, this wasn't just about the will. This wasn't just about Mom's favoritism. Something much darker was happening here. And I was going to find out exactly what my golden brother had been hiding. You know that feeling when you pull on a loose thread, and the whole sweater starts to come apart? That's what happened next. I couldn't let it go. That check Derek walked out with, those forged signatures, those missing thousands, it all kept me awake at night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my mother handing over money she'd worked 30 years to earn, smiling like she was doing something wonderful. I needed answers. Real answers. Not the pretty lies Derek wrapped up in his charm. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I went behind my mother's back. Our bakery's accountant, Mr. Howard Chen, had been doing Mom's books for 15 years. He was quiet, methodical, and honest to a fault. The kind of man who color-coded his file folders and arrived exactly 7 minutes early to every appointment. I called him on a Thursday morning, when I knew Mom would be busy with the lunch rush. "Mr. Chen, it's Lisa. Janet's daughter. I need to talk to you about something sensitive." There was a pause. "Is your mother aware of this conversation?" "No. And I need it to stay that way. Please. Just, can we meet? Somewhere private?" Another pause, longer this time. "Village coffee shop. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. I'll bring the relevant files." My hands were shaking when I hung up. The next morning, I told Mom I had a dentist appointment. She barely looked up from the dough she was kneading, just waved me off with a flour-covered hand. Mr. Chen was already there when I arrived, sitting in the back corner with a leather briefcase on the chair beside him. He looked older than I remembered. Tired. "Lisa," he said quietly as I sat down. "I've been hoping someone would ask these questions." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" He opened the briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. "I've been managing your mother's accounts for a long time. I know what normal looks like. And for the past 3 years, nothing has been normal." He spread papers across the table between us. Bank statements, withdrawal slips, loan documents. "See these?" He pointed to a series of withdrawals. "These started appearing about 3 years ago. Small at first. 2,000 here, 3,000 there. Your mother told me they were for equipment upgrades, ingredient suppliers, things like that. I asked for receipts, but she said Derek was handling those purchases and would send them to me." "Derek," I whispered. "He never sent receipts. Not once." When I pressed your mother about it, she got defensive. Said Derek knew what he was doing, that I should trust her judgment. So He looked down at his hands. I stopped pushing. It wasn't my place to question how she spent her own money. "How much?" I asked. "Total. How much is missing?" Mr. Chen met my eyes. "As of last month? $247,000. The coffee shop spun around me. Nearly $250,000. Gone. But that's not even the worst part," he continued, pulling out another document. "These are loan applications. Against the bakery property itself. Your mother's signature is on all of them. I looked at the signatures. They looked like Mom's writing. Almost perfect. But I'd seen enough of those forged checks to know better. She didn't sign these, did she? I said. Mr. Chin shook his head slowly. I don't believe so. When I called her to confirm the first loan 6 months ago, she had no idea what I was talking about. She seemed genuinely confused. But then Derek called me back an hour later, very friendly, very smooth. Said his mother was getting forgetful, that they'd discussed the loan over dinner, and she'd just forgotten. He asked me not to bother her about it again, said it stressed her out. And you believed him? I wanted to, Mr. Chin admitted. Your brother is very convincing. And your mother clearly adores him. I thought maybe I was the one who was confused. But the second loan, the third, each time, the same pattern. She doesn't remember. He calls to smooth things over. I felt sick. How much does she owe now? On the loans? $135,000. With the bakery as collateral. If those loans default. He didn't need to finish. We both knew what would happen. Mom would lose everything. I gathered the papers with trembling hands. Can I make copies of these? I already did. He pulled out another folder and handed it to me. Lisa, I'm an accountant, not an investigator. But I know fraud when I see it. Your brother is systematically draining your mother's business. And if someone doesn't stop him soon, there won't be anything left to save. I left that coffee shop with a folder full of evidence and a growing knot of dread in my stomach. But I needed more. I needed to know why. What was Derek doing with all that money? That's when I made my second decision. One that felt even more like a betrayal. I hired a private investigator. His name was Marcus Webb, recommended by a lawyer friend who owed me a favor. Former police detective, now worked private cases. Discreet, thorough, and expensive. I paid him with money from my own savings, money I'd been setting aside for years, dreaming maybe one day I'd open my own small cafe. Those dreams felt stupid now. Follow Derek Hayes, I told Marcus, sliding an envelope across his desk. I need to know where he goes, who he sees, what he's doing with his time. Everything. Any particular reason? Marcus asked. He's stealing from my mother. I just need to know why. Marcus didn't ask any more questions. Just took the envelope and got to work. 3 days later, he called me. You're going to want to see this in person, he said. We met at a diner outside of town. Marcus slid a manila envelope across the table, and I opened it with shaking hands. Photographs. Dozens of them. Derek walking into a building with a neon sign, Lucky Dragon Casino. Derek sitting at a poker table, chips stacked in front of him. Derek in a heated conversation with a man covered in tattoos. Derek handing over a thick envelope to that same man in a parking garage. Your brother has a gambling problem, Marcus said quietly. A serious one. He's a regular at 3 different casinos within 50 miles. High-stakes poker, mostly. From what I can gather from my contacts, he's in deep with some very unpleasant people. The kind who don't accept "I'll pay you next week" as an answer. I stared at the photos. My charming, successful brother. My mother's golden boy. How much does he owe? I whispered. Conservatively? Around 80,000 to the casinos themselves. But the private debts, the ones to people like the guy in these photos? Could be double that. Maybe more. I felt like I was going to be sick. There's something else, Marcus said, pulling out another photo. This is Derek's house. I looked at the picture. A beautiful 2-story home in an expensive neighborhood. Manicured lawn, 3-car garage, pool in the back. He and his wife Vanessa live well beyond any legitimate means I can find. His supposed business consulting firm? It's a shell. No real clients, no actual income. Everything they have, the house, the cars, the lifestyle, it's all funded by your mother's money. Vanessa knows, I said. It wasn't a question. Oh, she knows. I followed her too. Woman spends money like it grows on trees. Designer bags, spa days, expensive lunches with friends where she picks up the whole check. She's living the dream, on your mother's dime. I sat there in that diner booth, surrounded by evidence of my brother's betrayal, and felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just sibling rivalry. This wasn't just about who Mom loved more. Derek was destroying her. Deliberately. Methodically. Taking everything she'd built and feeding it into slot machines and poker tables, while she smiled and called him her perfect son. But I still needed one more piece. The smoking gun. Something that would be undeniable, even to my mother's love-blinded eyes. I went back to the bakery office late one night, long after Mom had gone home. I knew where she kept her important documents, the filing cabinet in the corner, the one with the sticky lock that you had to jiggle just right. I found the loan documents. The originals. And I held them up to the light, comparing them to letters I knew Mom had written. The signatures were perfect. Almost. But in the tale of the Hawaiian haze, there was the tiniest difference. A hesitation. The kind you'd see if someone was copying rather than writing naturally. I took photos of everything. Every forged signature, every suspicious withdrawal, every loan document. I organized them chronologically, building a timeline of Derek's theft. And then I found something that made my blood run cold. A new loan application. Dated from just 2 days ago. For $75,000. Against the bakery. Derek's signature was on it as a witness. Mom's signature was at the bottom. But Mom hadn't been to the bank 2 days ago. I knew, because I'd been with her all day. We'd had a mother-daughter lunch for her birthday, and then worked the evening shift together. She couldn't have signed this. Which meant Derek had forged her signature again. But this time, he'd gotten greedy. $75,000 in one loan. That would push the total debt past $200,000. The bakery couldn't survive that. Even if Mom worked every day for the rest of her life, she'd never be able to pay it back. Derek wasn't just stealing anymore. He was preparing to destroy everything. And when the bakery collapsed under the weight of all that debt, he'd act surprised. Play the victim. Maybe even blame Mom's failing memory or poor business decisions. And then what? Would he sell the property to pay off his gambling debts? Walk away clean while Mom lost everything? I sat in that dark office, surrounded by 30 years of my mother's dreams, and made my decision. I'd tried to be the good daughter. The reliable one. The one who didn't make waves. But Derek had made a mistake. He'd underestimated me. Thought I'd just keep my head down, keep being invisible, while he robbed our mother blind. He was wrong. I wasn't going to beg Mom to see the truth anymore. I wasn't going to compete for her love or her approval. I was going to stop him. Whatever it took. And if that meant going to war with my own brother, so be it. Sometimes the hardest truth to accept is that the person you love most, loves someone else more. I spent 2 days rehearsing what I'd say to my mother. 2 days organizing the evidence, planning my words, trying to find a way to break her heart as gently as possible. Because that's what this would do. It would shatter everything she believed about her perfect son. I chose a Sunday evening. The bakery was closed, the streets quiet. I asked Mom if we could talk privately, and something in my voice must have warned her, because her smile faded. "What's wrong, honey?" We sat in her office, that small room that smelled like cinnamon and old paper. I spread the documents across her desk. Bank statements. Photographs. Loan applications. The evidence of 3 years of systematic theft. "Mom," I said softly, "I need you to look at these. Really look at them." She picked up the first bank statement, her reading glasses perched on her nose. I watched her eyes move across the numbers, saw the moment confusion flickered across her face. "I don't understand. What am I looking at?" "Withdrawals. Over $200,000 in the last 3 years. Money that's been taken from the bakery accounts without proper documentation." She set down the statement, her hand trembling slightly. "Lisa, what are you trying to say?" "I'm saying someone has been stealing from you, Mom. Someone has been forging your signature on loan documents, taking money from the business, and covering their tracks. That's ridiculous. Who would?" I slid the photographs across the desk. Derek at the casino. Derek with the tattooed man. Derek's expensive house that he couldn't possibly afford. Derek has a gambling addiction, Mom. A serious one. He owes dangerous people a lot of money. And he's been using your bakery as his personal bank account to pay them off. My mother stared at the photos. Her face went pale, then flushed red. But it wasn't shock I saw in her eyes. It was anger. At me. "How dare you?" she whispered. "Mom, please, just listen." "No." She stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. "No, I will not listen to this. I will not sit here while you try to destroy your brother with lies and hired investigators." She grabbed one of Marcus's surveillance photos, waving it at me. "You had him followed? Your own brother?" "Because something was wrong. Mom, look at the signatures on these loan documents. Really look at them. You didn't sign these. Derek forged." "Stop it." Her voice cracked like a whip. "Just stop it, Lisa. I know you've always been jealous of Derek. I know you've resented him because he made something of himself instead of just staying here, working in this little bakery." The words hit me like a slap. This little bakery? Mom, this is your life's work. This is everything you built. And Derek is taking it apart piece by piece. Your brother is a successful businessman. He has his own consulting firm, his own life. Yes, I've loaned him money from time to time, because that's what mothers do. We help our children when they need it. Loaned him? Mom, he's taken nearly $250,000. And he's never paid back a single cent. She wasn't listening. I could see it in her eyes. She'd already made up her mind before I'd even started talking. You know what I think? Mom said, her voice shaking. I think you're trying to sabotage him. You found out I'm leaving the bakery to Derek, and you couldn't stand it. So you fabricated all of this evidence to make him look bad. To try to change my mind. Mom, no. That's not what this is about. I don't care about the will anymore. I care about you. About what he's doing to you. What he's doing to me. Derek loves me. He visits, he calls, he cares. You're the one who's here every day, yes, but maybe that's because you have nowhere else to be. No life of your own. And now you're so consumed with bitterness that you try to destroy your own brother. Each word was a knife. I'd known Mom favored Derek, but I'd never realized just how deep that bias ran. Deep enough that she'd reject reality itself rather than see a flaw in her golden boy. Please, I tried one more time, my voice breaking. Just call the bank. Ask them about these loans. Talk to Mr. Chen. He'll confirm everything I'm telling you. I think you should leave, Mom said coldly. Mom. I said leave. I need to think. I need to. I need you to go. I gathered up my evidence with shaking hands. As I reached the door, I turned back. When this all falls apart, I said quietly, when the truth comes out and you lose everything, I hope it was worth it. I hope protecting his image was worth more than your own daughter trying to save you. I left before she could respond. I made it to my car before the tears came. Great, heaving sobs that felt like they were tearing me apart from the inside. Not because I was surprised, but because some small, desperate part of me had hoped. Hoped that maybe, just maybe, the evidence would be enough. That she'd choose reality over fantasy. That she'd choose to see me. But she hadn't. And she wouldn't. I sat there in the parking lot for maybe 20 minutes, crying in the dark, when headlights suddenly flooded my car. A vehicle pulled up next to me. A sleek black sedan that I recognized immediately. Derek's car. He got out slowly, fixing his expensive watch, smoothing his designer jacket. Then he tapped on my window. Against my better judgment, I rolled it down. Lisa, he said, his voice dripping with false concern. Mom just called me. She's very upset. Said you ambushed her with some crazy accusations. They're not accusations, Derek. They're facts. He leaned against my car, so casual, so confident. You know what your problem is, Lisa? You've always been so bitter. So jealous. I've tried to overlook it over the years, for Mom's sake. But this? This is going too far. I have bank records. Photographs. Evidence of forgery. This isn't jealousy, Derek. This is theft. And you know it. Something flickered across his face then. Something dark and cold. The mask slipped, just for a second, and I saw what was really underneath all that charm. Nothing. Just empty, selfish nothing. Here's what's going to happen, he said softly. You're going to drop this little investigation of yours. You're going to apologize to Mom for upsetting her. And you're going to keep your mouth shut about things you don't understand. Or what? He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Or I'll make sure Mom knows exactly how ungrateful you've been. How you've been plotting to steal the bakery for yourself. How you've been manipulating the books, maybe even taking money yourself. Who do you think she'll believe, Lisa? Her successful, loving son? Or her bitter, jealous daughter who's never accomplished anything on her own? My blood ran cold. You'd lie to her. Frame me. I'd protect my mother from a vindictive, greedy daughter. That's how she'd see it. That's how everyone would see it. He straightened up, adjusting his cuffs. You can't win this, little sister. You never could. So do yourself a favor and walk away. Keep working at the bakery, keep your head down, and maybe I'll let you stay on after I inherit. Out of the kindness of my heart. He started to walk away, then paused. Oh, and Lisa? Those photographs, those bank records? Circumstantial at best. You really think you can prove anything? I've been very careful. Every loan, every withdrawal. Mom signed for them. Or at least, that's what the documents say. Good luck proving otherwise. He drove away, leaving me sitting there in the dark parking lot, my tears dried, my hands clenched into fists. He was right about one thing. I couldn't win. Not this way. Not by appealing to Mom's better judgment, not by showing her evidence, not by asking her to choose reality over the fantasy she'd built around her perfect son. But he was wrong about something else. He thought I'd give up, walk away, accept defeat like I'd accepted being overlooked my entire life. He thought I was still that invisible daughter who never made waves. I sat there in my car, and I thought about Mr. Chen. About Marcus Webb and his connections. About lawyers and fraud investigators and people who dealt with things like forged signatures and embezzlement. My mother wouldn't listen to me. Fine. But there were other people who would. People who didn't care about favoritism or golden children or a mother's blind love. People who only cared about facts. Evidence. The law. Derek had made a crucial mistake. He'd gotten comfortable. Sloppy. That last loan application, the one he'd forged just days ago, he'd gotten greedy. And greed makes people careless. I pulled out my phone and called Marcus Webb. I need you to document everything, I told him. Every casino visit, every meeting with his creditors, every expense that doesn't match his supposed income. And I need you to connect me with someone at the fraud division of the bank. Someone who takes forgery seriously. You're going to war, Marcus said. It wasn't a question. I'm going to stop him. Whatever it takes. I called Mr. Chen next. Told him to freeze any new transactions on the bakery accounts if possible, to flag anything suspicious. And then I called a lawyer. A real one. The kind who specialized in financial crimes and family disputes. Because Derek was right about one thing. I couldn't win by playing fair. By trying to convince my mother with evidence and appeals to reason. But I could win by playing smart. By being patient. By building a case so solid that it wouldn't matter what my mother believed. The truth would come out. Not because she chose to see it. But because the law would force her to. I drove home that night with a strange sense of calm. I'd spent my whole life trying to earn my mother's love, her respect, her attention. Trying to be good enough, valuable enough, worthy enough. But I was done with that now. Done trying to compete with a ghost of who Derek pretended to be. Done begging for scraps of affection from someone who'd already decided I wasn't worth seeing. Now I was just going to save her. Whether she wanted me to or not. And if that meant she'd hate me forever, well, at least the bakery would survive. At least Derek wouldn't win. At least I'd know I'd tried. Sometimes love means doing the right thing, even when the person you love can't see it. Even when they hate you for it. Even when it breaks your heart. You know what's funny about revenge? People think it's loud. Dramatic. Full of confrontations and shouting matches. But real revenge? Real revenge is quiet, patient, methodical. Real revenge is watching someone dig their own grave, and handing them a bigger shovel. After that night in the parking lot, I didn't speak to my mother for 2 weeks. She didn't call me either. The silence between us felt like a physical thing, heavy and cold. But I wasn't sitting around feeling sorry for myself. No. I was working. My lawyer, Catherine Reeves, was exactly what I needed. Mid-50s, sharp as a blade, with 30 years of experience in fraud cases. She looked at my evidence with the clinical detachment of a surgeon examining an X-ray. This is good, she said, spreading the documents across her conference table. Very good. The pattern is clear, the amounts are substantial, and these signatures. She held one up to the light. These are definitely forgeries. I've seen enough of them to know. But is it enough? I asked. To actually stop him? Alone? Maybe not. Your mother could claim she gave him permission, that she was aware of the loans. But combined with testimony from the accountant, the bank records, the private investigator's documentation of his gambling, she smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. We can build a case. But we need to be smart about timing. What do you mean? Your brother is going to make another move. Addicts always do. Gamblers especially. They chase their losses, they get desperate. And when they're desperate, they get sloppy. She leaned back in her chair. We wait. We watch. And when he makes his next big play, we spring the trap. So that's what I did. I waited. I went back to work at the bakery, even though every moment there felt like swallowing glass. Mom was cold to me. Not openly hostile, but distant. Like I was an employee she didn't particularly like, rather than her daughter. Derek came by more often. Making sure I knew my place. Making sure Mom stayed on his side. He'd walk in with flowers, with stories, with that golden smile. And Mom would light up like she always did. Her perfect boy. Her brilliant son. I'd watch them from across the bakery, and I'd think about all those forged signatures. All that stolen money. All those lies wrapped up in charm. And I'd smile and stay quiet. Because Catherine was right. Derek was going to make another move. I could see it in the way he was acting. More nervous. More frequent visits. More requests for small loans that Mom handed over without question. His gambling debts were catching up to him. Marcus kept watching. Kept documenting. Derek's casino visits were getting more desperate. Longer hours. Higher stakes. The kind of betting that screamed of someone trying to win back what they'd lost. It never works that way. But addicts always think this time will be different. Meanwhile, I worked with Mr. Chen and the bank. We set up alerts on Mom's accounts. Any new loan application, any large withdrawal, anything unusual, we'd know immediately. And then I waited some more. 3 weeks after my confrontation with Mom, it happened. Mr. Chen called me at 6:30 in the morning. I was barely awake, but his voice snapped me to attention. Lisa, he's doing it. Right now. What? Derek just submitted a new loan application. $90,000. Against the bakery property. It came through the online system an hour ago. My heart started pounding. 90,000? It would push the total debt to over 220,000. The bakery can't sustain that. If this loan goes through, your mother will lose everything within 6 months. The property, the business, all of it. This was it. The big move. The desperate play. What do we do? I've already flagged it with the bank's fraud department, like we discussed. They're reviewing it now. But Lisa, they're going to need to involve the authorities. This is beyond internal banking issues. This is criminal fraud. Do it, I said. Whatever needs to happen. Stop him. The next few hours were a blur. Phone calls with Catherine. Documents being filed. Statements being given to bank investigators. And then, around noon, Catherine called me. The bank has contacted federal investigators. They've reviewed the evidence, the pattern of forgeries, the loan applications, everything. They're moving forward with charges. Charges? Bank fraud. Identity theft, forgery. Multiple counts. Lisa, they're going to arrest him. The room spun around me. I'd wanted to stop Derek, to save Mom's bakery, but somehow I hadn't quite let myself believe it would come to this. Arrest. Criminal charges. When? Today. They're going to pick him up this afternoon. And Lisa, they're doing it at the bakery. He's meeting your mother there at 2 p.m. They know because the bank tipped them off that he'd be there to discuss the loan. No, I whispered. Not there. Not in front of Mom. I'm sorry. But they want him somewhere public, with witnesses. It's procedure. I looked at the clock. 1:15. I had 45 minutes. I should have stayed away. Should have let it happen without me there. But I couldn't. This was my mother's whole world about to come crashing down. Even if she hated me, even if she'd chosen Derek over me again and again. I couldn't let her face this alone. I got to the bakery at 1:55. Mom was in the kitchen, prepping for the afternoon rush. She looked up when I walked in, surprise flickering across her face. Lisa. I didn't expect you today. I know. I wanted to be here. She frowned, confused. But before she could ask questions, the door chimed. Derek walked in, all smiles, carrying a bouquet of roses. There's my favorite baker, he said, kissing Mom on the cheek. He saw me standing there and his smile faltered for just a second, just long enough for me to see the flash of anger in his eyes. Lisa. What a surprise. Derek. Mom looked between us, sensing the tension. Derek, you said you had good news about a business opportunity? I do. He set the flowers on the counter. Actually, I wanted to discuss expanding your distribution. I found some investors who are interested in Sweet Dreams products. But we'd need to take out a loan to increase production capacity first. He was smooth. So smooth. Even now, with federal agents probably minutes away, he was still spinning his lies. How much of a loan? Mom asked. Nothing major. Maybe 80, 90,000. Just temporary, until the investors. The door chimed again. 3 people walked in. 2 men in dark suits, 1 woman. They had that unmistakable look. Authority. Purpose. Derek Hayes, one of the men said. Derek turned, his smile still in place but his eyes wary. Yes? Can I help you? The man pulled out a badge. I'm Agent Mitchell, Federal Bureau of Investigation. This is Agent Chen and Detective Rodriguez. Mr. Hayes, we need you to come with us. You're under arrest for bank fraud, identity theft, and multiple counts of forgery. The world seemed to stop. Mom's face went white. What? There must be some mistake. Ma'am, please step back, the female detective said gently. Derek's mask finally shattered. The charm, the smile, the golden boy act, it all fell away, leaving something ugly and desperate underneath. "This is ridiculous," he said, his voice rising. "I haven't done anything wrong. Mom, tell them." "Mr. Hayes, please put your hands behind your back," Agent Mitchell said, pulling out handcuffs. "No. No, this is a mistake. This is—" Derek's eyes found mine across the room. And in that moment, he understood. You did this." Mom turned to look at me, her face a mixture of shock and confusion and something that might have been horror. "Derek Hayes, you have the right to remain silent," Agent Mitchell began. "She set me up," Derek shouted as they cuffed him. "My jealous, bitter sister couldn't stand that Mom loved me more, so she fabricated all of this." "Mom, please, you have to believe me. I would never." "Sir, you need to calm down," Detective Rodriguez said firmly. They started walking him toward the door. Derek was still talking, still protesting, his voice getting more panicked with every word. Mom, don't let them do this. I'm your son. Your perfect son. Tell them it's all a lie. Tell them." But Mom just stood there, frozen, her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. As they reached the door, Agent Mitchell turned back to us. "Mrs. Hayes, we're going to need you to come down to the station to give a statement. These loan documents were submitted using your information, and we need to clarify what you knew and when." Mom nodded mutely. And then they were gone. Derek, the federal agents, all of it. Just gone. The bakery was silent except for the hum of the ovens. Mom slowly turned to look at me. Her face was ashen, her eyes red. "You knew," she whispered. "You knew this was going to happen." "Yes. You did this. You had your own brother arrested." "I tried to tell you," I said quietly. 3 weeks ago. I showed you all the evidence. You chose not to believe me. Because it was insane. Because Derek is my son, and sons don't steal $250,000? Forge their mother's signature? Put her business at risk to feed a gambling addiction? I felt something crack inside me. "Mom, he was going to destroy you. That loan he was talking about just now? That would have been the final nail in the coffin. In 6 months, you would have lost this bakery. Everything you built. Everything." She shook her head, backing away from me. No, there has to be an explanation. "Derek wouldn't, he's a good boy. He's always been." "He's a liar and a thief," I said, and my voice broke. "And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that I couldn't make you see it before it came to this. But I wasn't going to stand by and watch him destroy you." Mom stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. "Get out." "Mom." I said, "Get out." Her voice cracked like a whip. I can't look at you right now. Just go. Please just go." I left. Again. Walking out of that bakery for the second time in a month, feeling my mother's hatred following me like a shadow. But this time I wasn't crying. This time I was just numb. I'd done it. I'd stopped Derek. Saved the bakery. Protected my mother from her own blind love. And it had cost me everything. They say the truth will set you free. They don't tell you how much it costs first. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. I didn't go back to the bakery. Didn't call my mother. I just existed. Went through the motions. Waited. Catherine kept me updated on Derek's case. The evidence was overwhelming. The bank had everything: forged signatures, fraudulent loan applications, a clear paper trail of theft spanning 3 years. Derek's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecution wasn't interested. They wanted to make an example of him. Marcus sent me one final report. Derek's wife, Vanessa, had filed for divorce within 48 hours of his arrest. Moved out of their expensive house, took everything that wasn't nailed down, and disappeared. No loyalty there. Just a woman who'd been enjoying stolen money and wanted nothing to do with the consequences. The house went into foreclosure. The cars were repossessed. Derek's entire perfect life collapsed like a house of cards. And through it all, I heard nothing from my mother. Until day 16. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was at my apartment, staring at my laptop, pretending to look for new jobs. The knock on my door was so soft I almost didn't hear it. I opened it to find my mother standing there. She looked like she'd aged 10 years. Her hair was grayer than I remembered, her face lined with exhaustion. She was holding a large manila envelope. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. I stepped aside without a word. We sat at my small kitchen table. The same table where I'd reviewed all the evidence against Derek. The same table where I'd made the decision to go to war with my own brother. Mom set the envelope on the table between us but didn't open it yet. She just sat there, her hands folded, staring at nothing. The federal investigators came to see me, she finally said. Several times. They walked me through everything. Every forged signature. Every stolen dollar. Every lie. Her voice cracked. They showed me security footage from the bank, of Derek, signing my name. Over and over. Getting better at it each time. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? They told me the total, she continued. $263,000. Gone. Just, gone. Into casinos and to pay off gambling debts and to fund a lifestyle he never actually earned. She laughed, but it was a bitter, broken sound. My perfect son. My brilliant boy. He was robbing me blind, and I was smiling while he did it. Mom. No, let me finish. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and her eyes were swimming with tears. You tried to tell me. You brought me evidence. You begged me to see the truth. And I called you jealous. Bitter. I chose him over you without even thinking about it. You loved him, I said softly. That's not a crime. But it was blind, she said. So blind that I couldn't see what he was doing. So blind that I pushed away the daughter who was actually trying to save me. She opened the envelope with shaking hands and pulled out a stack of documents. The lawyers say the bakery is salvageable. Barely. The bank is willing to restructure the debt because of the fraud. But it's going to take years to recover. Years of working twice as hard, cutting costs, rebuilding what Derek destroyed. She slid the documents across to me. I looked down and my breath caught. They were partnership papers. Making me a 50% owner of Sweet Dreams Bakery. I don't deserve your help, Mom said, her voice breaking completely now. I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I'm asking anyway. Because I can't do this alone. And because you're the only one who ever really loved that bakery the way I do. The only one who ever really cared. I stared at the papers, tears blurring my vision. I'm sorry, Mom whispered. I'm so sorry, Lisa. For everything. For favoring him. For not seeing you. For not believing you when you were trying to save me. For wasting so many years loving a fantasy instead of appreciating the real, wonderful daughter who was right in front of me the whole time. She reached across the table and took my hand. Hers was trembling. I know I can't undo the past. I know saying sorry doesn't fix the years of hurt. But if you'll let me, I'd like to try. To really see you this time. To be the mother you deserved all along. I looked at my mother, really looked at her, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Remorse. Real, genuine remorse. Not just for the money, not just for the bakery. But for me. For the daughter she'd overlooked while chasing the shadow of a son who never really existed. What happened to Derek? I asked quietly. Mom's face hardened. He took a plea deal. 8 years in federal prison. His lawyer said he could have gotten 15 if he'd gone to trial, but the prosecutor agreed to reduce it since he cooperated and provided information about the people he owed money to. She looked down at our joined hands. I went to see him. Once. Before he was sentenced. And? He blamed everyone but himself. Blamed his gambling. Blamed the people he owed money to. Blamed me for not giving him more. Blamed you for turning him in. She shook her head slowly. He never once said he was sorry. Never once took responsibility. I sat there listening to him make excuses, and I realized. I don't know my son at all. Maybe I never did. I was so busy loving the idea of him that I never bothered to see who he really was. We sat in silence for a long moment. The trial brought out other things too, Mom continued. Other people he'd scammed. Business partners he'd cheated. Friends he'd borrowed money from and never paid back. Your brother wasn't just stealing from me, Lisa. He was destroying everyone who ever trusted him. Did Vanessa know? I asked. About all of it? Oh, she knew, Mom said bitterly. The lawyers found emails between them. She was helping him track how much he could take before I'd notice. They were planning to drain everything and then disappear once I died. They'd already looked at property in Costa Rica. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. They'd been waiting for her to die. Counting on it. I'm sorry you had to learn all of that, I said softly. I needed to, Mom replied. I needed to have my illusions completely shattered. Because anything less, and I might have tried to make excuses for him. Might have convinced myself it wasn't that bad. She squeezed my hand. You saved me, Lisa. Not just the bakery. Me. From my own blindness. From losing everything to someone who never loved me at all. I felt tears sliding down my cheeks. I didn't want to hurt you. I know. And that makes what I did to you even worse. She stood up, came around the table, and pulled me into a hug. A real one. Not the absent, distracted hug she used to give me, but the kind of embrace that says I see you, I value you, I'm sorry. We stood there in my tiny kitchen, both of us crying, both of us holding on like we were drowning. When we finally pulled apart, Mom wiped her eyes and managed a small smile. So, partners? I looked at the documents on the table. 50% ownership. Equal say in all decisions. My name, right there next to hers. It wasn't about the money or the ownership. It was about finally being seen. Being valued. Being chosen. Partners, I agreed. The next few months were hard. Harder than I ever could have imagined. We had to refinance the loans. Cut staff. Reduce hours. There were days when I wasn't sure we'd make it. Days when the debt felt like a mountain we'd never climb. But Mom and I worked side by side. Really worked together. And slowly, painfully, we started to rebuild. Not just the bakery. Us. Mom learned to ask my opinion. To value my input. To see the business decisions I'd been making quietly for years. And I learned to trust her again. To believe that this time, she really did see me. We didn't talk about Derek much. What was there to say? He was in prison, serving his time. Mom wrote to him once a month. He never wrote back. One evening, about 6 months after Derek's sentencing, Mom and I were closing up the bakery. It had been a good day. Actually profitable for the first time in weeks. Lisa, Mom said as we wiped down the counters, I've been thinking about something. What's that? When I'm gone, when it's really time for me to retire, I want you to have this place. All of it. Not 50%. All of it. I stopped wiping. Mom. I mean it. This bakery should go to the person who loves it, who respects it, who's willing to work for it every single day. She smiled at me. That was never Derek. But it's always been you. I felt tears prickling my eyes again. Seemed like I cried a lot these days. Happy tears, sad tears, healing tears. Thank you, I whispered. No, Mom said firmly. Thank you. For not giving up on me. For saving me from myself. For being the daughter I didn't deserve but got anyway. We finished closing in comfortable silence. As we walked to our cars, Mom paused. You know what I learned from all this? She asked. What? That the children who shine the brightest aren't always the ones who love you most. Sometimes they're just the ones who are best at performing. At being what you want to see. She looked at the bakery, the place she'd built with her own 2 hands. But the ones who really love you? They're the ones who show up. Day after day. Even when you don't appreciate it. Even when you take them for granted. They're the ones who save you, even when you don't want to be saved. She hugged me one more time. You were always the real golden child, Lisa. I was just too blind to see it. I drove home that night thinking about everything that had happened. Derek in prison. Mom and me rebuilding. The bakery slowly, painfully recovering. It wasn't a happy ending. Not really. Too much had been lost. Too many years wasted. Too much damage done. But it was an honest ending. A real one. And maybe that's better than happy. Maybe facing hard truths and building something genuine from the rubble. Maybe that's worth more than any fairy tale could ever be. Derek taught me something, in his own twisted way. He taught me that being loved isn't the same as being seen. That you can be someone's favorite and still mean nothing to them. That golden children aren't made of gold at all. Sometimes they're just painted that way, and underneath, there's nothing but rust and rot. But Mom taught me something too. She taught me that people can change. That love can be rebuilt. That it's never too late to open your eyes and really see the people who've been there all along. So if you're out there, listening to this, and you recognize yourself in my story, if you're the overlooked child, the reliable one, the one who's never quite good enough, I want you to know something. Your worth isn't determined by someone else's blindness. You don't have to prove yourself to people who refuse to see you. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is save someone who doesn't even know they need saving, even if they hate you for it. Stand firm in your truth. Document everything. Trust the evidence over emotions. And remember that being right is cold comfort when you're alone, but being right is still better than being complicit in your own destruction. Some golden children really are gold. But some are just shiny on the outside and hollow within. Learn to tell the difference. Your life might depend on it. Thank you for walking this difficult road with me to the very end. If this story resonated with you, you can support our community by sending a super thanks. It helps me continue to bring these important stories to light. On the screen now are 2 more stories that I know will touch your soul. I'll see you in the next one. Stay strong.